Episode 616 of the podcast that is sweeping America, the Untitled Sports Podcast presented by Betfred Sportsbook. It is Thursday, November 3rd, 2022, people. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everybody is having a great day. I hope everybody, when I say this is a jam-packed episode of the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast, I have never been more sincere when I say that. Here's what you need to know about today's show. We are going to start the show. We will talk the college football playoff rankings. I know you guys and girls tell me I don't really care about that stuff. Well, trust me, based on the downloads that I see, based on the views that I see, I know that you very much care. We will try to be quick because the results are now 36 hours or so old. From there, we will transition to some mega news from the sports world. Gonzaga had a meeting with the Big 12 last week. Could Gonzaga be leaving for the Big 12? I think they just might be. This one passes the smell test to me. And finally, we'll wrap. How about this? Hugh Freeze, head coach, Liberty Flames, joins the Aaron Torres podcast. This is why you listen to this show. Your boy brings on the biggest guests in the world of college sports. I'll be blunt. I'll be transparent. I did speak to Coach Freeze last week during their bye week. It was before he signed the extension at Liberty. It was before the Auburn job opened. But the extension at Liberty will not keep him from getting opportunities elsewhere. And I did ask him point blank, would you consider other schools? He gave a fascinating response that I don't think you will want to miss. Also talks about Liberty's success this year, the Arkansas game this weekend. Lot of good stuff with Hugh Freeze. Make sure to stay tuned to the end of today's show. But with that said, let's get to the topic of the day. And the topic of the day, you know where I'm going to start. Tuesday night, the first edition of the college football playoff rankings came out. For those of you who aren't like super versed with the college football calendar, remember, we have the AP poll in the preseason. We have the coaches poll, all that. But the college football playoff rankings are the rankings that are done by the folks who choose the 4 teams for the college football playoff. They start putting out rankings this time of year. These are ultimately the only rankings that matter. AP, coaches, any other one, it's for fun. These are the ones that count. Now, before we get into my immediate reaction, I know what a lot of you are thinking, and I know what a lot of you are going to tell me. Torres, none of this matters. And to a degree, I'll just say this. You're right. That is very factually correct. Tennessee plays Georgia this weekend, and regardless of who was ranked number 1 last week, whoever wins that game is going to be ranked number 1 next week. Obviously, if Michigan and Ohio State win out and face each other, then guess what? The winner of that game will probably be no worse than number 2, assuming that the winner remains undefeated and wins the Big Ten. Alabama, of course, is going to have to beat somebody. So ultimately, none of these rankings really matter at this specific point. At the same time, as I said, to lead the show, I can see the download numbers. I can see the view numbers. And I know you guys and girls care. So let's share some immediate reaction. And just to be, I don't know if transparent's the right word, but let's just give you the top 10 just to kind of give you a baseline of what happened on Tuesday night and what it all means. So let's start. Number 1, the Tennessee Volunteers. A little bit surprising there. We'll talk about them in a minute. Number 2, Ohio State. Number 3, Georgia. Number 4, Clemson. Number 5, Michigan. Number 6, Alabama, the first one-loss team in these rankings. Number 7, TCU, undefeated in the Big 12. Number 8, Oregon. Number 9, USC. Number 10, LSU, the only 2-loss team in the rankings. Again, Alabama, the highest-ranked one-loss team. TCU, the lowest-ranked undefeated team. LSU, the only team with 2 losses to make the top 10. So with that said, I do want to discuss it. And what we'll do kind of, we do on Fridays where Aaron was right, where Aaron was wrong. Let's do what the committee got right and what the committee got wrong. And let me start by saying this. I give the committee credit. On Saturday night, after Tennessee beat Kentucky, I said that I believed that Tennessee was no doubt about it the number 1 team in the country. I thought they deserved to be the number 1 in not only this poll, but the AP coaches poll. But most importantly, I said when the committee makes their picks, Tennessee should be number 1. Realistically, though, I did not think the committee would do it. I thought they would kind of just stick to what the AP has done. Obviously, I understand that the AP poll it starts in the preseason, and if you start really high and you don't lose, you're going to stay there. But I kind of thought there was a scenario where Georgia could be number 1, Ohio State could be number 1, and that Tennessee would be 3 or 4 somewhere in the top 4, top 5 maybe. but that ultimately the committee would just kind of put Tennessee kind of to the side and say, you know what? You're playing Georgia this weekend. We'll bump you up to number 1 if you beat Georgia. That's what I thought would happen. So I have to give the committee credit because they put Tennessee at number 1. Now, I don't know if they listen to the Aaron Torres podcast. I don't know if they follow my social media feed and were intimidated, but Tennessee was the number 1 team. And Tennessee, I think, was rightfully the number 1 team. First of all, best win in college football. We're going to talk about Alabama in a second. I don't love Alabama being ranked number 6 in the first poll, but this is the best win so far in college football. Alabama at home, 3-point victory, 11 million people watched it. So you know what happened. You don't need me to tell you. But really, it's the totality of the victories for Tennessee that I believe puts them at number 1, no doubt in my mind. Not only did they beat Alabama at home, they also beat LSU on the road, which I think when you start talking about best wins in college football right now, I think you can legitimately argue. I would say the best wins so far right now, Tennessee against Alabama. Then I would probably say Georgia against Oregon. And then I'd probably say Tennessee at LSU. So you're talking about a scenario where Tennessee probably has 2 of the 3 best wins. I know Florida has kind of fallen back since that game, but I think that Florida win's a nice win. Kentucky, I know they've fallen back. They're not ranked. I think it's a nice win. Pitt, fallen back. I think it's a nice win. And so when you look at the totality of the wins for Tennessee, when you look at what everybody else's resume is too, Ohio State has only played 1 team that is ranked in this top 25. It was Penn State. They barely survived. Michigan only played 1 team in this top 25. So I think that this was the right decision by the committee. I think it was the thing to do. I'm just genuinely surprised they did it. And I do think I need to give them credit for that. With that said, I said, let's do where the committee got it right, where the committee got it wrong. So I thought the committee got it right by putting Tennessee at number 1. But I'm just going to be blunt. I'm just going to call a spade, and I'm just going to say it like it is. I kind of feel like pretty much after Tennessee, the committee kind of got every single thing wrong after that, okay? And let me explain it, because it's not only that they got it wrong and who really cares and da-da-da, it's this and that. It's that I think more than anything, what I observe from a distance is that they were very not only wrong, they were inconsistent in their message. So let me explain. So Clemson's number 4, people are freaking out. I actually have no problem with that. Number 5 is Michigan. Number 6 is Alabama. Number 7 is TCU. Okay. So let me backtrack and say this. I think that if I was doing the poll and if it was based solely on who the teams are, what they've done on the field, how they've looked, I think you could make a case that Michigan should probably be number 3 at the lowest, maybe number 2. I think Tennessee's 1. If I was doing this poll solo, if the college football world said, Torres, you're in complete control, I would put Tennessee 1, Georgia 2, Michigan 3. But Michigan fell to number 5, if you want to call it fall, for one simple reason. Their out-of-conference schedule, not very good. Now, they did play the UConn Huskies, so we got to give a little credit for playing UConn. I'm kidding, of course, sarcastic. Although Jim Mora does have the boys at 4 and 5, neither here nor there. But Michigan is really being punished. Remember, they were supposed to play UCLA. They canceled that game. And their out-of-conference schedule this year was Colorado State, Hawaii, and UConn. And so what the committee basically said was, Michigan, you didn't even try to schedule anybody worthwhile out of conference. Not only did you not try, you did have somebody scheduled out of conference, and you bumped that game to get an easy game in. And so we can't reward you. We can't put you ahead of Ohio State or Clemson or even Tennessee or Georgia, even if we think you're better. And I'm not saying the committee thought that, but the committee basically said, we can't do that because if we do, we're rewarding you for basically scheduling nobody. So I get that message and I have no fundamental issue with it. Here's my problem though. If the message is you have to play people and you have to beat people, why is TCU number 7? So TCU, they did something. I want to give credit to Joel Klatt and his team. I know his producer over there at Fox. He's a really, really smart guy. Joel Klatt dug up an interesting nugget on TCU. TCU became only the 3rd team in college football history to beat 4 straight ranked opponents in back-to-back-to-back-to-back weeks. Sounds like Tom Amansky Defense video. Back-to-back-to-back AAU national championships. That was TCU. Back-to-back-to-back-to-back ranked teams. Now, I understand that a few of those teams have since dropped in the rankings, but even among the 4 teams that they beat, 2 of them are in the committee's top 20, Oklahoma State and Kansas State. TCU beat 2 of them. So why is TCU at number 7? Oh, by the way, in the out-of-conference, they played 2 true road games at Colorado, at SMU. I'm not saying either of those teams is great. One's a rivalry game. They're going to play SMU every year. They went on the road to face another Power 5 team. And so that's where my frustration with the committee is. I like putting Tennessee at 1 and rewarding them for what they've done on the field. But after that, it's kind of this, do we reward the brand that we like? Do we reward the team that we think is better? We're making up the criteria as we go, because that's kind of what it feels like to me, if you really think about it. And more than anything, what I would just say is that I think that once you get past, I think really 2 with Georgia, I think Tennessee, Georgia should be 1-2. And this isn't like a pro SEC thing, as you'll hear in a minute. I think after that, it's really sketchy, right? Because Ohio State, 1 win over a team currently ranked in the top 25 of the, of the committee's poll. That was at Penn State. That was a struggle. So why are they ahead of Clemson, who has 3 wins over teams currently in the top 25, Syracuse, NC State, and Wake Forest? Don't get it. TCU has 3 wins or 2 wins over teams in the top 25. That is where it gets confusing. And to me, more than anything, I think it speaks to one thing. It speaks to brand bias, coaching bias, and I don't even know. Brand bias is probably the best word to put it, because the way that I see it is this. Again, we have to understand these rankings are supposed to be based solely on what has happened this year on the field, not only with what you've done, but with what your opponents have done. Okay. So let me ask you a question. Again, TCU ranked at number 7. How are they behind Alabama? And this isn't an anti-Alabama thing. I think Alabama has the best loss of anybody in college football at Tennessee. Tennessee's a great team. I love Tennessee. We're going to talk about them, certainly on Friday's show, previewing the big game against Georgia. But if the argument is that it's about what you did on the field, TCU, as I said, has 2 wins over teams currently in the top 20. Why are they behind Alabama? Well, they're behind Alabama because they're a brand that nobody trusts, nobody knows anything about. But there isn't anything Alabama has done on the field that makes them worthy of being the number 6 team in the country. Best win, I guess it would be against Texas, which came in at 24 in the committee's poll. That was without Quinn Ewers for most of the game. Second best win, probably Arkansas, not ranked. Mississippi State, not ranked. Texas A&M for Alabama, certainly not ranked. So you're talking about 1 win over a top 25 team. It's the number 24 team in the country, which, oh, by the way, is coming off a loss prior to their bye week and is 5-3 overall. And so if it's really about what happened on the field, Alabama shouldn't be ahead of TCU. I'll take it a step further. I think Oregon's got a better win than anything Alabama's done, smacking UCLA a few weeks ago. Worth noting when you talk about the brand bias, LSU at number 10, 2 losses. I get it. They're probably the best 2-loss team in college football. And oh, by the way, one of those losses, again, to Tennessee, a very good loss. But UCLA is sitting at 7-1. UCLA has a great win over a top 15 team in Utah. Probably better than anything other than LSU did against Ole Miss, but LSU has 2 losses, including 1 on a neutral field to an unranked team. So I know we're nitpicking here, and I know it's all going to figure itself out. By the way, how about this? UCLA is at number 12. USC is at number 9. Both 7-1, both in the Pac-12. UCLA beat the team that USC beat in Utah. So again, I know it's not that big of a deal. I know that we're going to figure all this stuff out. But what do I always tell you guys and girls about situations like this? It's pretty straightforward. I say it when it comes to the AP poll. I'm going to say it when it comes to this poll. I'm going to say it when it comes to the NCAA tournament and March Madness. If we're going to do something, do it right. And so to me, I guess what I would say is pretty straightforward. What is the criteria? What are you judging it on? And let's keep it consistent. If it's about everything that you've done on the field, who you've beaten, TCU should be not only ahead of Alabama, they should probably be ahead of Ohio State, probably should be ahead of Michigan as well. If it's strictly about how you've looked, I think Michigan should be higher. Clemson's kind of that weird team. I don't think they've looked great, but the wins look good on paper. So what is it, committee? Hopefully we get a little bit more clarification. And again, I get it. All this stuff is going to sort itself out. Georgia and Tennessee play this weekend. One of them will play either very likely the winner of Alabama or LSU in the SEC championship game. Michigan and Ohio State will play. TCU has tough games ahead. Clemson has tough games ahead. I guess what I would say, I just want a little bit more consistency. All right, so what I want to do, take a quick break, come back, and when I come back, we will talk about the shocking news out of the college sports realignment world. Gonzaga, a meeting with the Big 12. They're calling it exploratory. I'll just tell you, I think it makes sense for a lot of people on both sides. We're going to discuss that next. We're going to get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, I want to welcome back our presenting sponsor, Betfred Sportsbook and the Betfred Sportsbook app. So here's the deal. I've told you about Betfred, but I'm going to keep telling you about them. Love working with them. Started in 1967 in the UK, over 1,600 shops in the UK. They have come to the United States and made a major splash. Presenting sponsor of the Cincinnati Bengals, of the Colorado Rockies, of the Denver Broncos. Oh, by the way, if you're watching the World Series, Mattress Mac, he's got a lot of money on the line. Some of it is with Betfred Sportsbook. And Betfred, if you're a Betfred guy and girl like me, you're rooting for anybody but the Astros. With that said, what I love about Betfred, they do more for their customers than anybody, okay? So Betfred does it all. They have tailgates outside of Broncos games. We sent a few listeners to the Aaron Torres pod there a few weeks ago. They have the Betfred suite at Cincinnati Bengals games. They have first pitch at Colorado Rockies games for Betfred bettors. You name it, Betfred takes care of their customers in a way that nobody else does. And here is what they are going to do for you right now. As I've told you before, this weekend, college football, it's a big one. Georgia, Tennessee, LSU, Alabama, and Betfred is giving you a special offer as a listener of the Aaron Torres pod. Bet 50 on any college football game this weekend in week 10 or week 9 of the NFL. Bet 50, you get $250 in free bets courtesy of the Betfred Sportsbook. You like Georgia, take Georgia. You like Tennessee, take Tennessee. Bet 50, get $250 courtesy of the Betfred Sportsbook. Obviously, later this week, we will have our Betfred boost courtesy of your boy AT, but nobody does more for their customers. Love working with Betfred. And you right now can bet 50, get $250 on any game this weekend. All right, everybody. I am back. Good to be back. Good to be back. I do want to switch gears to hit on yet another mega topic in college sports. In what is just, I think this has been the craziest week of college sports news, probably all season long, all year long, right? We have the college football playoff rankings on Tuesday, which we just talked about. We, of course, have the Auburn firing, which has led to so much craziness over the last couple days. The brawl involving Michigan State football players attacking a Michigan player from all the video that we've seen. We have covered it all. And yet on top of that, we got another mega story on Wednesday afternoon that absolutely has to be discussed right now. It comes from the world more so of college basketball, and it comes from the world, the never-ending world, really, of realignment. That is because on Wednesday afternoon, Pete Thamel, I think he's the best insider in college sports as far as a reporter is concerned. He put out there that last week when Gonzaga was in Texas to play Tennessee in that charity exhibition game that we talked about on Monday's show and we talked about last week. We had the guy on Charlie Bessler from Intersport to discuss the game itself. Well, while Gonzaga was in Texas to play Tennessee, Pete Thamel reports that Gonzaga's AD had a meeting with the Big 12 commissioner and that it is very possible that Gonzaga could be leaving for the Big 12. Now, to be clear, all reports as I record here at about 6:30 Eastern time on Wednesday are that it's exploratory, but I will just tell you this. I have read a lot of these reports through the years, a lot of different realignment stuff. This feels serious. This feels meaningful. And right now, if I had to bet, I would suspect that at some point in the near future, we hear that Gonzaga is making a move somewhere, very likely to the Big 12. And I think, frankly, it makes sense for both sides. So let's talk about it. Let's break it down. And let's really look at it from all different angles, because I think it makes sense for both sides. And of equal importance, there's a third entity that needs to be discussed as well. From the Big 12 perspective, this is very much in line with what Brett Yormark, the new commissioner of the Big 12, has been about since he took the job. He officially took it this summer, but he has said, look, we are going to be aggressive. We are going to be fearless in how we attack things as the Big 12. For too long, we have been reactionary rather than actionary. We ain't sitting around twiddling our thumbs waiting for somebody to do something to us. And so over the last couple months, what he has done has been very impressive. Most importantly, we didn't talk about it on Monday's show, but The Big 12 announced a new TV deal on Sunday. A lot of people question, could they get it done? All these moving parts, no Texas, no Oklahoma. Well, Brett Yormark, the commissioner, got a TV deal done with both Fox and ESPN that's going to pay those Big 12 schools about $35, $36 million a year. No, it's not SEC money. No, it's not Big Ten money, but it is better than we thought it would be. And so Brett Yormark has promised to be aggressive. He got the TV deal done, and I think he wants to continue to be aggressive going forward. From the basketball perspective, I mean, this would just be obviously a home run. Now, I don't want it. I love Gonzaga in the West Coast Conference. I love this weird, quirky school beating the crap out of everybody by 70 on random Wednesday, Thursday, Friday nights. But from the basketball perspective, it makes perfect sense. For all the criticism of what the Big 12 lost with Texas and Oklahoma, specifically in football, although, they're keeping some good teams too with TCU and Kansas State, et cetera, Oklahoma State. But for all the criticism of what they've lost in football, in basketball, this is still the best conference in college basketball, okay? Even without Texas, Oklahoma, still have Kansas, the reigning national champ, still have Baylor, the team that obviously won the championship 2 years ago, still have Texas Tech. I don't think a lot of people realize this. 3 of the last 4 NCAA tournaments that have been played, Texas Tech has advanced to at least the second weekend, 1 Final Four appearance, 1 obviously title game appearance in the Final Four in 2019. Beyond that, remember who they're adding. Because of realignment, they're adding Houston, one of the, I think, up-and-coming programs in the country. They're going to start the season. They are starting the season in the top 5. They're adding Cincinnati. I think they're up-and-coming with Wes Miller. They're adding BYU, really interesting program with Mark Pope. So you look at this conference right now, it was already the best conference in college basketball. It's getting better with Houston, better with BYU, better with Cincinnati. We won't talk about Central Florida. And imagine if they added Gonzaga? Kansas, Baylor, Gonzaga? Are you kidding me? You know what else it does too? It's not just about the basketball product on the court. What is it about? Keeping your business partners happy. Think about it from the Big 12's perspective. Now they can go back to those TV networks and say, hey, we already got BYU in this West Coast window. Now we got Gonzaga. Now we can have Kansas, Houston, 9 o'clock Eastern tip, and we can follow that with Baylor at Gonzaga or Kansas at Gonzaga or whoever at Gonzaga. It works for the league. It works for the TV networks. And I would add this as well. I think it makes sense for Gonzaga. There was one really interesting line. Let's talk about it from the Gonzaga perspective. Now, what I would say about Gonzaga, I don't believe that they are in a rush to leave the WCC. They have it really good there. I've said it many times. Mark Few basically he might as well be the commissioner of the WCC. Whatever he wants, he gets. Fewer league games, more time for out-of-conference games. The path to the conference championship game for him is so easy. You only play 2 games. So I don't think they're in a rush to leave, but there are 2 things that are obvious. One, they have been looking at other options. Remember, about 4 years ago, there was a report that they got pretty far down the road with the Mountain West. Mountain West ultimately was offering them more money, more exposure, more this, more that, better conference, San Diego State, UNLV, whoever. And at the last minute, they pulled back and just said, you know what, this isn't for us. Again, Mark Few got a few of those things that he wanted to stay in the WCC. There's been reports that the Big East has had conversations with Gonzaga. Don't know how far those have gone, but obviously from a basketball-only perspective, it makes sense. And of course, the Pac-12, they're right in the Pac-12 footprint. You'd be naive to think that the Pac-12 hasn't at least contacted them. Now, whether there's been formal discussions, I don't know. But I bring it up because it's been obvious from an outsider that they're at least looking at their options. This is obviously a great option with the basketball element of this as well. I thought it was very interesting in Pete Thamel's article, the exact words. Let me see if I can find the exact, it's not a direct quote, but what he said was, so Gonzaga was brought up by the conference and it's blah, 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 this and that. This is what he said. He said, the school has been transparent with the WCC about its conversation. So we know they've been flirting. They have told the conference itself, we're talking to other people. So to me, this is more than just exploratory. They are looking at their options. They are waiting for the right option. And if the right option fits, then it's something that they would consider. The other thing I would say too, the Big 12 just got that new TV deal. Think about it from Gonzaga's perspective. Now, they probably wouldn't get a full share the way that Oklahoma State or Kansas State or Kansas or Baylor does. But if you don't have football, what does it matter? If you're making $25 million instead of 35, but you don't have football, you don't have to, scholarships for 85 players, feed 85 players, pads for 85 players, nutrition for 85 players, insurance. If you don't have football, the money makes more sense, and they're certainly going to make more money from the Big 12. Finally, and I think this is important, everybody looks at it from the Big 12 perspective, the Gonzaga perspective. You know what I don't think anybody's talking about? Keep in mind, what did I just tell you? The Big 12 just signed a new TV deal with both ESPN and Fox. Why is that important? We know that the TV networks run realignment. And so if you already have a partnership with the two big TV networks, with the two big ones, that's probably something that they would be excited to add to their portfolio, to add Gonzaga to their portfolio. And so you have to think, and I haven't had any conversations with TV people, but you would have to think that ESPN's excited about it. I know I work for Fox. I work for Fox Sports Radio. I have no idea what's going on in the TV department. But you would think that the TV networks would be over the moon if, again, you can add Gonzaga, an elite brand. You can like them, you cannot like them. But that is an elite brand. And then just as important, and this is important, again, you get those late West Coast games. Fox has something to put on FS1 at 11 p.m. ESPN has something to put on at 11 p.m., 11:30, 10:30, whatever it is. And it's big brands. It's not Gonzaga beating somebody by 40. You got Kansas at Gonzaga, Baylor at Gonzaga, Texas Tech at Gonzaga, BYU at Gonzaga, Cincinnati at Gonzaga. So I don't know how far this is along. What I do know is it makes sense for the Big 12, for Gonzaga, and for the TV networks as well. Lastly, what I would say, I've tried to defend the Pac-12 through all this craziness. I think they're a little bit more stable than people want to give them credit for. But if they let Gonzaga out of their grip, I'm doing the hand thing right now, that is a brutal look for the Pac-12. In your footprint, across state from Washington, short drive to Oregon, and you let them go to a mostly Midwest conference, that's a really, really bad look for the Pac-12. Again, I've given credit to the Big 12 for being proactive instead of reactive. It's time for the Pac-12 to get a little proactive as well. They better get on the phone. They better see what Gonzaga wants. Because if you lose Gonzaga to the Big 12, that is a really, really bad look. All right, that's what I want to do. I do want to take a quick break. I do want to come back. And when I come back, as promised, we are welcoming on a friend of the show, a great guy. I love talking to him, and he is certainly in the news. It is Hugh Freeze, the head coach at Liberty. We talk about everything. We talk about this weekend at Arkansas. We talk about how he builds all these great teams. And at the end of the interview, I do ask him about other jobs. Now, it's important to note, we did this interview in the middle of the bye week last week. Liberty had a bye. This was before he signed his extension. This was before Auburn fired Brian Harsin. But even with the extension, it's not enough to keep teams away. And I did ask him point blank, would you be interested in other jobs? His answer was very interesting. So we're going to take a quick break, come back, talk to Hugh Freeze. And this is an exclusive. You heard from Lane Kiffin yesterday. You're going to hear from Hugh Freeze right now. Take a quick break. Be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute. But before we do, I want to welcome back the sponsor of our Aaron Torres pod, NFL Pick'em Challenge, Bracket Fanatics and BracketFanatics.com. Listen, I've worked with Bracket Fanatics for years, multiple NCAA tournaments, and we started the Aaron Torres pod NFL Pick'em Challenge. This is such an awesome deal for you guys and girls. This is all you got to do. Go to BracketFanatics.com. Join Bracket. The bracket name is Torres. Do that, and here is what you can get. We have weekly $100 winners, and we have a season-long $1,000 cash prize. Free to enter, no sign-up, no this, no that. Enter every week, $100 weekly winner, $1,000 season-long cash prize. That is what Bracket Fanatics does for you. That is what Bracket Fanatics is doing for Aaron Torres and the Aaron Torres pod this football season. Again, week 9 is coming up. We will announce our week 8 winner later this week. But if you have not signed up, BracketFanatics.com, join Bracket. The bracket name is Torres. And if you've already signed up, go ahead and make those week 9 picks. We are giving out money. We are going to announce our week 8 winner later this week. Thank you to Bracket Fanatics, BracketFanatics.com. Again, BracketFanatics.com. Join bracket name Torres. All right, joining me via Zoom. I've had him on many times. It's a busy time of year, so I feel fortunate. Hugh Freeze, head coach, Liberty, 7-1 Liberty Flames. They are on a bye, but you're a busy man, Coach. I appreciate your time. How you doing today?
Aaron, I'm doing great. Just bye weeks are always a lot more enjoyable when you come off a win than off a loss. So that makes it even sweeter. But doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. And, you talk about not just a win, but I've been reading some of your kind of commentary. So if people don't know, you played BYU. BYU was in the top 25 for a good chunk of this year. And this is no disrespect to their program, but you put it on them pretty good. And you did it in a game where, your starting quarterback's been out. He's sort of back, but he's not really back. You're down to your third, fourth string quarterback, multiple starters out. For people who just it's a busy college football Saturday, take us into last Saturday against BYU and really just frankly, how big it was for you, your team, your program.
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there, but you start back 5 decades ago, the vision to start this place and by our founder, Dr. Falwell. And one of the things he said repeatedly in his founding was his vision was that one day we would field a football team here on the mountain in Lynchburg, Virginia, that would play the likes of BYU. And I'm sure many people thought he was crazy. And then not only would we play them, but we would compete with them. And I'm sure that a lot thought he was crazy. So for us to walk in that vision and experience hosting BYU here, and obviously we're an evangelical faith-based university, and BYU to Mormons is the same thing. And we have such respect for them and the way they run their program. Kalani's a dear friend, but to host them here in a first ever sellout crowd, it was packed, people everywhere, standing room only. And so many have heard of this vision. And then for us to walk in it as a staff and players and find a way to play so well, get the win, obviously with our top 2 quarterbacks out, plus a slew of receivers were out. It was just a magical night, really one of my top 3 to 5 experiences, and to see the number of people that just were overwhelmed with joy because of this victory was pretty dang special.
So in your pregame speech, I thought this was interesting. I saw a video where you said, this is, the preparation doesn't change, but this is bigger and this is different. And that felt like anti-coach speak to me, right? Like coaches, this is, we're playing number 1 team in the country. It's no different than whatever. I like that you were just like, no, this is huge. This is why you came here. This is the game you came. Is that, I don't know, where did that come from? Is that normal for how you operate? Because it just felt so anti what most coaches would say in that moment.
Aaron, I want to tell you, man, in the last 5 years, I've learned so much about myself, others, and the way I want to be, what I can control and what I can't control. What pride does to you. I've learned so much, and man, I am so true to myself right now, and I'm so transparent with our players. I tell them when their coach has gotten it wrong, and I tell them when I've gotten it right. I tell them what I learned from each, and I don't want them to experience some of the things that I've experienced. And I just know my players know when I walk in there on Monday. I teach a class every Monday to our players about life.
Sure.
And then I turn our attention to the game, but it's really about life. And I do this. I teach a lesson, and I work on it back in the summers, typically from a book that I'll get, and then I'll teach them real life lessons, because I just think we should be about that as coaches. But I walked in there Monday and started, and I said, guys, I'm gonna put it to you straight as I can. This is the biggest game in school history. And I think if I was anything other than that, I think our players would have said, man, he ain't being true to himself, because they've come to expect that from me. I tell them every Monday, this is a game we should win. This is a game we should lose. This is a game that's a toss-up. I tell them that. And that doesn't mean we're going to lose it. We've won some that we're not supposed to win. And we've won a lot of toss-ups. I mean, our record over the last 4 years here is pretty dang remarkable for just us moving into the FBS world. But so I don't know if that's normal for most coaches, but it's the way I want to operate.
How has the reception from players over the years changed? I mean, we call it the BS meter here in the real world. I mean, do you see players reacting differently when you are just 100%? Hey, this is a big one. Hey, this is one that people don't think you can win. What is the player reaction as you've evolved as a coach?
Well, again, I think initially, the first year, there's probably a lot of mixed bags in there. But now that I've got a group that's been with me all 4 years to kind of set the tone in the locker room, I think when you get a voice in the locker room that is him as that coach on Monday and Thursday in our team meetings, and those players are saying, this is him and he's right. Listen to him. He knows how to win. He'll help us win. He'll help you succeed. When you get that going, and we have an incredible culture council of 12 guys that I think allow me to be that way, and that in turn helps when in the locker room they say, no, he's right. You need to listen. And you're out of line there. That's not the standard. And when you get that, I think you've got a chance to win a lot of football games. If you got to have some good players, but when you can have good players and not have culture in your locker room and lose a bunch of games too. And so I think that's the key.
No, I was going to say, so there was an incident, and we don't have to name the school, people probably know, but an incident with, a major program the last couple of days. And I said, on this show, I said, I remember talking to Ed Reed, of all people, Hall of Famer, years ago. And he said, when I was at Miami, he's like, I handled the punishment. He's like, Larry Coker didn't have to worry about a darn thing because he knew that nothing got by me. Two parts to that. How long does it take to create that, like the culture where the players are holding themselves accountable? And then two, I know it's cliche, but every person that I've ever spoken to has told me the best teams, the best programs are player led. How long does that I mean, does it take a full 4 years? I mean, how long did it take you to get that to that place at Liberty?
Oh gosh, Aaron. So I don't want to sound, I don't want to sound like I have it figured out.
Sure.
But if you look at my track record, I've been able to do that quickly at every place. So, I mean, go back to my NAIA days. I took over a Lambert program that didn't win a game the year before. We win 9 in year 1 and then 11 or 12 in year 2. Arkansas State never had a winning season. They had won 6-6, I think, and we went 10 in year 1. Ole Miss hadn't won an SEC game in 2 years. And we roll in there in year 1 and win 7 games and go to a bowl game and win it. And then here, same scenario, going to FBS, and we go to a bowl game in year 1 and win it. I just think, I don't know. I have a lot of weaknesses, Aaron. I'm not, but I think some people have a gift to point a group of young men in the right direction culturally. That doesn't mean we're perfect now. Listen, I got a room of 120 in there, and listen, all of them are not perfect, and they're all not going to do it right. And I think it's an unrealistic expectation that you would ever think that you would get 100% buy-in from any team, business, church, whatever. You're not getting 100% buy-in, and it's like I had a guy tell me the other day, there's a whole bunch of hypocrites in the church. I said, yep, we'll move over and make room for you. You can come on in too. But you're never going to get 100% buy-in. The goal for me is always, it's just like in one-on-ones for our receivers, is I want them to win 75% of their one-on-ones. I want to get 75% buy-in. And what really happens when you get that is I think the other 25% start realizing, look, my voice really doesn't matter.
Interesting.
And that doesn't mean you're insignificant as a person, but your voice really doesn't matter. So you either get all in or you get out. And typically they at least become where they may not be all in, but they're not crushing the culture. But you've got to have some leadership in that locker room. And I spent a lot of time in the summer with our culture council saying, it's your team. I can show you how to win. Here's the proof. Here's what my teams have done. All right. I can show you how, but ultimately it's your team. And so what do you want it to be? And we developed that together, sitting in my house every summer. And all right, what's the standard? And how are we going to hold each other accountable? We had a little issue this week, not a major one, but we win a big game, man. We're 7-1, and pride, which I'm sounding the alarm because that's all of our downfall as men is our stupid pride.
Sure.
And I'm sounding the alarm, and we got this locker room is a great first sign. You walk into a team's locker room and look at it, you can probably tell the culture's pretty good here. I don't know. Look at those lockers. And so I brought it to our attention on Wednesday practice, and the culture council said, "That's it, coach. You don't have to say another word. We got it." And that's what I think it takes. So I don't know how long it takes. Really, it's better in year 4 than it was in year 1. But and you better have coaches.
Sure.
They better understand this guy. One of the non-negotiables when Freeze hires you is you drive the culture. I set the culture. I set the standard. And if you can't drive it, you're not going to last long with me. And I'm not talking about being perfect, but man, you better not. I can't have double tongued. If we say it's important that your kid's locker is clean and tidy, then by God, you better make sure it is. That's your responsibility. If we say we want to graduate them, then you got to get them across the finish line. And so I think it takes all of that to do it. But in my interview, I'm probably the worst interview guy of a coach that there is.
Just too honest.
I go into very little ball because I'm going to do the ball on offense anyway. But I just need guys to be fundamentally really good at what they do. But I spend time are you able? Do you have the capacity to have the mental toughness enough to every single day be sure you are driving the standard of our culture? And that's not easy for everybody to do every single day. And I don't do it. Look, I look myself in the mirror at night some nights and say, you know what? I didn't do a great job in practice today of driving the standard. I got to, but that's to me what integrity is, Aaron. Integrity, it's not always getting it right, or none of us would have it.
Sure.
Integrity is owning what that film says of your life, or what that film says of your game, or what that film says of practice. You have to own it. That's what integrity is, and then make the necessary changes and play the next play. To me, that's what integrity is, and I think our coaches have to have that, along with myself. Man, are we really driving the culture?
It's so funny. No, I mean, as I get older too, I mean, you just realize everybody. It doesn't matter the job. It doesn't matter this. It doesn't matter that. Everybody has bad days, and so it's just funny for you to say. There's sometimes that even hey, we're 7-1, but I look at myself in the mirror and feel like I didn't have the best, practice, the best game, whatever it was. So I don't know, just life lesson that I've learned along the way.
That's another thing is I do probably differently than I stand before our team on Monday and I tell them how many awful plays I called.
What's the highest number this year? Am I allowed to ask?
Yeah, it's 3.
Okay.
And that's 3 too many.
Sure.
And when I say a bad play, I don't mean a play didn't work, or sometimes they beat you, but when I call a play that schematically has zero chance at working during a game, I have not met my standard, and I have let these players down. It happens, but I want them to see the integrity I have to say, and you know what, I got it wrong. And I think it just breeds authenticity and transparency, and it's like, man, that guy, he's going to tell you. I come in the practice field after I chew somebody out, and I'll have to go to him and say, you know what, I was wrong. I didn't see it right on the field. You actually did the right thing.
Do you ever make yourself run laps or up downs?
Push-ups. We don't. I don't like cursing around our program and our young ladies and everybody. So we have a standard for that, and if somebody messes up with that, we do 5 push-ups. That's not one of my great temptations, other than 3rd and long. When a team converts 3rd and long, I don't know why, Aaron, but I want to drop a curse word. And
sure.
I never curse any other time. I don't curse when I hit a bad shot on the golf course or anything. But man, if you let them complete a 3rd and 12, I want to I want to let loose on one.
It's frustrating as a fan too, if it makes you feel any better. It's frustrating as a fan. What else do you feel like over the last however many years? You said you've evolved as a person, evolved as what else have you learned about yourself, about leading people, young men, all that?
Oh man, I've pretty much touched on the leading of men,
Sure.
just being authentic and real and genuine, and saying, listen, here's exactly what I've done and what I haven't done, so and you don't have to worry about trying to decipher from this crazy propaganda world of social media.
Mm-hmm.
And please don't let that define who you are or your self-worth. And I've just come to the conclusion, and I really don't, I'm at peace with who I am and where I am and where my family is, and that's the most important thing. And making sure that, trying to chase people's approval, which I'm guilty at
Mm-hmm.
Ole Miss. Um, man, we don't have time to go through it all, but man, at Ole Miss, I was, I am Mississippi born and bred, and I returned to my home state and deliver a winner. And boy, I was not prepared to handle all the pride issues that came with that. And it obviously, and now, man, heck, 10 years ago or 5 years ago, I would be chasing people's approval. I really don't care what people say, man. There's none of us that don't have some failures or some poor moments or some poor decisions. And those that want to continue to rehash, beat up, put down, I will never understand that mindset. And now I'm just at a point in my life where it doesn't bother me anymore.
Sure.
Because I've got the most important people that know me for who I am and love me, and that's my players, my staff, my wife, my kids, my administration, and my friends. And man, I don't know that I could be more blessed as a human being. And so I've just learned to be very authentic and real and genuine with the people around me, and not to worry about the things that I have zero control over, nor chase the next thing.
Sure.
I don't have to. And used to, man, it was just, oh God, what's the
Yeah.
next thing? What's the next thing? And it's kind of refreshing not to be that way.
No, I think that's a type A type person. I try not to be that way, but I think we all are. I have a really good friend who I try to talk some sense into sometimes. It's always the next thing, and it's like, dude, you got two
Live
beautiful
where your feet
kids.
are. Yeah.
Yeah, you got two beautiful. Like the job you got is really good. You don't whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, um, real quick, couple other things. Obviously, look, you're not looking for anybody's approval. I understand that, but make a heck of a statement. You walk into an SEC stadium this coming weekend against Arkansas. I don't know, we're recording here during the bye
Yeah.
week. This interview will run in the lead up to the game. Obviously, I know Sam Pittman's track record, Coach Pittman's track record, and the teams that he has kind of built. But have you had the chance to look at Arkansas yet? And I assume you got to be pretty impressed by, especially the way they run the ball, the physicality, all that stuff.
Yeah, I've watched them all this week, and we shouldn't win the game. They have better players. They should. They're in the SEC, and they're 85 are going to run faster and be bigger and jump farther and change directions better than our 85. And so that is what it is. But I'm okay with that. And that's I love these opportunities. I think we should embrace it. And we're going to get to go play a fine football team that is well coached and with zero expectations. And, we've competed with the likes of Wake Forest, who's I don't know, what they are, 13, 12 in the nation right now. I had a legit chance to win that game. I go for two, and that's one of the plays I didn't coach well enough. Or we had a chance to win that game. That's our only loss. So our kids are going to embrace it. They're going to fight it. And they'll go fight. We played a very talented Ole Miss team last year, and lost 27-14, but really it was closer than that in the second half had we not had a couple penalties and a turnover. But it is what it is, and we're going to embrace it and look forward to it.
By the way, week after, I don't know if you know this. I went to UConn, by the way. So, the Rentschler Field, the house that Torres built over there in East Hartford. I'm just saying, don't overlook those Huskies either. But I know 1 week at a time.
Listen,
This is what
Yeah, it will be. But I assure you, I know Jim Mora,
Yes,
and that they're much improved. And
he is.
listen, we've struggled mightily this year at times offensively without our quarterbacks. Now, I think there's a chance we're going to get both 1 and 2 quarterbacks back in the next few weeks, hopefully by UConn, if not this week. And hopefully we can start being a little more efficient and consistent offensively.
Last one. By the way, Coach Moore is doing an awesome job there. They're down about 1 million bodies as well. I think they're
It's
3-5.
crazy. I think it's happening to more so this year. We literally got 13 players last Saturday, and I don't remember a time, but it seems like that's.
Yeah.
I've never had this issue at quarterback.
Yeah.
I've never. The only issue. I mean, I lost Chad Kelly at Ole Miss late in the season, but that's the only starter here. I've lost number 1 and number 2 for significant time. It's I think it's happening more. I don't know if we're training too much throughout the year, or I think there's a lot of things that could be discussed. But anyway, that was off.
No, it's okay. It's interesting. We'll just wrap because it is still your bye week. I think you might want to hit the links after. We're gonna say you're gonna watch film, but no. We tell the truth here.
I've been there all morning. I've watched it. I've even scripted practice for Monday. It's all done.
Yeah, I was gonna say we tell the truth here on this show, and we tell this is what I've learned throughout this interview. All right, so you're gonna hit the links. I'm gonna relax because it's my Friday too. You're 7-1. What 4 games left? And the phone calls are going to come. And I know you're not chasing anyone's approval, but those phone calls are going to come. I mean, and I know, actually, I think I've talked to you about this before, on air, on the record, is that when you have success, people call, and you've talked to your players about that. When those phone calls start to come in after the season, last couple of weeks of the year, what will go into any process about listening to certain places, not listening, saying I'm good here at Liberty? I mean, what do you envision the next 5-6 weeks like for you?
Yeah, again, I talked to my AD and people. They've been so good to me here, and the contracts that they continue to present to me, and our staff is phenomenal, and we're a total piece here. So I've said from the time I got here, it would take something extraordinarily special for me to leave. I have had some phone calls from at least to my agent throughout the last 4 years and a couple this year. I have no clue if that means that someone's really serious about me or not, and I'm okay with that, whether they are or not. But to this point, every single time my response has been, I just really don't have interest, and I don't think that's the right fit. And I kind of, in my mind, Aaron, I tell my players, and I don't know that there'll ever come a time when I leave, but if it does, it would be and Jill, in my mind, there's only a few that really would say, man, we really want to listen to that because it fits our culture. It fits our location in mind. We're a college town family. I'm not a big city guy. I don't belong there. And if that select few, I do have kind of a list in my mind that if they ever were to have an interest, it'd be something that we certainly would listen to. And I have no idea, even if we listened, that we'd want to leave here, though. It's such a good place on the mountain. And but that's kind of how we'll go about it is, but there's very few that we even would take the calls from.
Head coach,
people think crazy, but I literally, there's some that I have zero interest in.
Well, and to bring it all full circle, right? I mean, that's about learning and evolving in life is you're winning. It seems like you have a great, your family likes it there. It seems like the administration supports you, and it's like,
incredible.
What do they say? Don't try to be happier than happy, or something like that. So
that sounds good. My daughter's my personal assistant. I mean, I beat that. And just, and the administration here has just been incredible. The fans, the students, our student section is incredible. Our administration, Ian McCall is one of the best leaders I've ever been around, and just very blessed and thankful.
Hugh Freeze, head coach, Liberty Flames, 7-1. Arkansas this week, UConn the following week. Coach, man, it's your bye week. Go enjoy the afternoon. I appreciate your time, and we will do this at some point in the future. All right.
Aaron, thank you always, man.